ABC. Joining me now, Michael Genovese, President of the Global Policy Institute at Loyola Marymount University, John Phillips, KABC talk radio host, and Mo Kelly, host of the Los Angeles radio program, The Mo Kelly Show. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Hello.
So exit polls indicate COVID-19 was the top issue for most voters, and that appears to have worked in Newsom's favour, even though this recall election took place because of the governor's tough COVID policies. Michael Genovese, what does that tell you about what Californian voters want to see in terms of vaccine and mask mandates going forward?
Well, for the governor, it was a mandate to continue doing those things, maybe even to ratchet it up. It was very, very clear that both the no and the yes folks took very seriously the COVID question. But the no votes were overwhelming, and they were overwhelmingly in favor of more of the same from the governor. You saw in exit polling, the no voters, the number one issue they said they voted on was COVID at a 42% rate. So it was a big issue, and it was a confirmation that the governor's policies were acceptable and that they would go on.
John Phillips, as a Republican, you wouldn't be very happy with this outcome, I would guess, but I'd be interested to get your reaction to Larry Elder borrowing directly from the Trump playbook, even before the counting started, with his baseless claims of election fraud if he lost. Do you buy into that? And do you think this outcome shows that voters are rejecting Trump's big election lie?
Well, if you go back a couple of weeks ago, the polls were much, much closer. You had any number of polls that showed this race within the margin of error. And that was back when Gavin Newsom was running on the platform of California roaring back. His COVID policies are causing our economy to boom and children to go back to school and all of these wonderful things. And it wasn't working. And at that point, he shifted his focus from talking about his COVID achievements and his achievements as governor to attacking Larry Elder, attacking Republicans, trying to make this a referendum on President Trump. And in a state where Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1, that became a battle that was much friendlier to him and ultimately was the reason why he won this election. In terms of whether or not there were shenanigans that took place in this election, if you lose by a touchdown, then maybe it could be a blown call. If you lose by 3 touchdowns, the blown call isn't the problem.
Mo Kelly, what's your reaction to what John just said and to Elder's apparently flawed strategy here?
Well, I think it was a flawed strategy, and Elder, I guess, embraced Trumpism in his delivery, in his style, of course, echoing the calls of the big lie. And I think that animated and that energized voters. It energized African-American voters. And remember, Larry Elder is a talk show host, as John Phillips is, and I am. And we don't have a political record to stand on. So Larry Elder had to stand on his past public statements as a radio host, which are oftentimes inflammatory, which are oftentimes offensive. And that was an easy rallying cry for Democrats. And so Larry Elder made it about himself, and Gavin Newsom obliged him and made it about Larry Elder and energized and animated the Democratic base.
And Michael, back to you. Despite the loss, Republicans have, of course, succeeded in threatening the governorship of a Democrat at a time when democracy in this country is looking increasingly fragile. Newsom himself calling it an antique vase, not a football. How flawed is a political system that allows less than 2 million disgruntled voters to mount a recall election on a governor who originally won by a landslide?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Rosemary, because California has the lowest bar, the lowest threshold for getting on the ballot with a recall from the last election. Most other states that have a recall have 20 or 25%. The state of Kansas, 40% threshold. So that's one lesson I think that we will learn, and we may reform that. But I think it goes way beyond that. I think it goes to, I think what John had said, and that is that in California, running against Trump really sells. That was the gift to the Newsom campaign, because before they nationalized the race, they were really having trouble. Once they nationalized it and made it about Trump, the Democrats shot ahead. And so fear of Trump really sells for Democrats, and it works.
And John Phillips, your Republican Party was able to recall Democratic Governor Gray Davis back in 2003, replacing him with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Why couldn't Republicans make that happen this time around, do you think?
Well, before people vote at the ballot box, they vote with their feet. And a lot of people who are upset at the policies in California, instead of sticking around and fighting and voting at the ballot box, they got in their electric cars, they loaded up their yoga mats and dragged as much kale as they could to Texas.
Lot
and
of
they moved on
stereotypes
to
there.
greener pastures.
Okay, Mo Kelly, this was a high-stakes recall election for Democrats in California. What are your thoughts on what Gavin Newsom needs to do with his win in terms of the coronavirus, the economy, homelessness, and other big issues that voters made clear they were concerned about?
Well, first, he needs to thank Larry Elder for getting in the race and saving his political skin. But also, I think Gavin Newsom needs to be more attentive to California voters writ large, because he still has to turn around and go back into campaign mode for the general election in 2022. So he's not out of the woods, but he's in a much better position now than he was. And if I could just say this, Gavin Newsom and also Joe Biden, President Biden, are, I would say, recipients of good timing. If President Biden were in a general election today, he probably loses. If Gavin Newsom were in a recall election 10 months ago, he probably loses. So it depends when elections are. And Governor Gavin Newsom is a product of the timing of the recall, as opposed to if it was not then as opposed to now. So Gavin Newsom needs to listen to California voters.
Yeah, timing is everything. Michael Genovese, Mo Kelly, and John Phillips, many thanks to all three of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And still to come, disturbing details.